Can you update us on have any more players been affected and where are you at with injuries? Could you have a depleted squad for the Manchester United game?
No, we're hopeful on that. They've been double tested again, and the timescale as well fits in. So we've followed all the protocols. So hopefully people will be available. The only challenge we like many others will have is, the true competitive element of the division is if you've had players who are been locking down, if you like, for 10 days, and yet they come straight back in and are expected to play a game, and then not just one game, 4 or 5 back to back. So it kind of opens a different debate on players. A lot of managers saying players play too much and all this kind of stuff. Then if it's too much, we've got to be careful that they're ready to play, without affecting the competitive element of the games, of course. So we've got to monitor that, but our lads are pretty fit historically, so we're pretty sure once we check them out they'll recover well and be ready and raring.
You had your say last week on vaccinations, but is it becoming increasingly more difficult to manage through this COVID situation? We saw the Chorley players celebrating at the weekend, yet players are being told that they shouldn't celebrate in that way, yet football is an emotional sport. Is it becoming more difficult?
Well, we've had a smattering of cases. Obviously, certain clubs with the Villa situation and Fulham, who were meant to play and stuff like that, have obviously had a bigger hit than us, seemingly. So I think of course, it's different and more difficult for us because we don't carry the same number of players as most teams do. But mainly, not really just the COVID thing. We've had so many injuries. So, of course, if you add the risk of COVID and the injuries together, then, of course, it makes it tougher for us. But no, I mean, I was pleased that mostly, anyway, most areas of the media ran what I suggested wisely and effectively. There's always people who are going to be disgruntled without really looking at the depth of the story, but that's life. I still think it's got some valid worth in it if and when the timing's right, of course, to apply the vaccinations to the football. But like I say, it's only a thought. I don't know all the science, the background science of the vaccinations, etc., etc., etc.
Let's talk about the Manchester United game, then they're second in the table. Do you see them as the real deal this season in terms of can they sustain a challenge for the title?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's been a funny one over the last number of games. It's almost like no one quite wanted to grip hold of it and win their games. There's been a few draws and a few ups and downs. And, I mean, it's good from the point of view of the top end of the league, the challenge that's there, at the moment, currently, with teams kind of get leading it, then not really faltering, but a draw here and a draw there, and all of a sudden it becomes a bit more congested up there. So I think that's good for the competitive element of the league. But no, Man United, I don't think anyone's doubted their ability for a long while. It's getting the consistency into the team, and winning games. Whatever level you're at, that's what all managers want. And they're showing much stronger signs of that, obviously, over the last run of games.
The transfer window is open. You've already talked about how tough it is getting players in January. Are you making any headway on anything? And how many players in an ideal scenario would you like to bring in during this?
There's no headway at the moment. We're discussing situations, but there's no sort of headway made. We're also looking at our in-house situations as well, now that the ownership has changed, to bring a bit more clarity to them situations too. No, my story hasn't changed. Money or no money, January historically is still a tough market, unless you've got, obviously I always cover that, unless you've got superpowered money, which I don't think, I certainly haven't been aligned with that thinking at the moment. The club, I think, will still be run in a good order financially. Maybe some more availability of some money at certain points. But the point is, I'm not talking about, when the superpowers throw around 50, 60, 70 million to make sure they get what they want. I certainly don't think that'll be the case. So the balanced view of what we've got in-house, making sure we protect that, Of course, I've spoken about it for months now. The fitness of the players will be really relevant, I think, going into this second stage of the season, because we've had a tough first stage of the season with so many injuries and a smattering of COVID cases as well. So before I overthink that, we want to get our own group aligned with what we do, fit for what we do, and carry on the task of the Premier League. So that's the first thought, and anything on top of that we can find that we think would be relevant, of course, we'll be looking at that.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Crabbers, Simon, PLP, hi.
Hi, Sean. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah, good.
Good stuff. Can I just quickly run through your list of players just to sort of tick or cross what you know as things stand accordingly, just in terms of fitness? So, how's Nick looking? I know he was on the bench. Is he fit to start, Nick?
Yeah, he rolled his ankle on Friday, but it wasn't a serious one. He could have, in theory, started in the game at the weekend. But we just were cautious, and we like what Will's been doing as well. So Will played, obviously. Charlie
Taylor?
Touch and go, I would say. With these players that are close, we're going to have to make a call ourselves. It's not always, some of the players are desperate to get back out there, and sometimes we have to make a call on that. So we'll have a look at that today and see how he's feeling.
Do you put Dwight and Jay in that bracket as well?
Yeah, similar the three of them actually.
Kev Long?
Yeah, more news today. Rolled his ankle last week, so we're waiting on news to see if that's settled down enough. So we get more news today.
And Josh, Ash Westwood, Jimmy Dunn and Bailey Peacock-Farrell, were they just sort of rested, in inverted commas?
Yeah, we're waiting to see on there a couple of COVIDs in there and a couple of just precautions by the guidelines as well. So we're waiting to see if they're available. But we're very hopeful.
Great, thank you. Just in terms of Manchester United, what can you take from what happened about a year ago at Old Trafford into this one? Because the home form, you'll be more than aware, isn't great against them, and that's possibly an understatement.
Well, thanks for that, because obviously I wasn't aware. But then, no,
well,
what we take,
yeah,
of course, I wouldn't know that. The facts of the matter are they're still a good outfit. They always have been. The stats and facts of the Premier League show you that when you play the superpowers, it is tough. Equally, we have turned over big results against these sort of sides. Mainly, I think, to be honest, I've been talking about it all season, is about our performance levels, and I think they've got stronger as the season's gone on. That coincides with the fitness of the group as well. So I think that's been good signs. We're on a good little run ourselves. So I think performances are what I'm really looking for, because I've said it all along, if you get them right, with our experience of the Premier League and my experience of the Premier League, if you find a consistent level of performance at a certain level within that consistency, you increase your chance of winning games over a season. Against the superpowers, I've said it all along, you have to play very well. They maybe have a quiet one. You have to get decisions. You have to get all the things that roll the right way for you, and that's an important factor. Some you can design to deliver yourself, of course, and some you are out of your hands and you just hope things land your way. And that often increases your chances of getting a result.
You got that at Old Trafford, though, didn't you? Are you not due it at Turf Moor now?
Well, the bit that we got at Old Trafford was a very good performance from our players. They maybe had a quieter one, but we were very good, I thought, on that occasion. We're going to have to be very good again. It's that one's not rocket science. To beat the top players and the top teams, then you've got to play well. So that's the minimum that we hope to do, is play very well.
And just finally, if I may, we're going to speak to Ashley Barnes in just a second.
That'll be an interesting conversation. It always is.
I love talking to Ashley Barnes, so I'll make no further comment on that, other than his next goal, hopefully it might come against Manchester United as far as you're concerned, will be his 100th career goal. But obviously his 99th took a while to come, didn't it? So how's he been, maybe mentally, as much as anything as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think that, his performance, I spoke early season, we'd asked a lot of him. He'd been out a long time and I played him consistently for a spell, and I thought that was hard for him, really. But we like him. We like how he operates. We like the player that he is, obviously. We took him out and he's come back in and he's looked sharper again. So I think his 100th goal will be around the corner. It'd be fantastic if it's tomorrow, quite obviously. But the goals will come for Barnsley, without a doubt.
And last one, just on Jack Cork that I forgot to pick up. How is he after playing his first game for so long?
Yeah, I mean, we managed, considering it went to extra time, we managed to, protect the players that we thought needed to protect him, whether it's just physically or through return to injury in Corky's case. So that's all it was. I thought he was playing very well. We just, he's still been out a long time. We're still trying to get him back to true fitness. It was always in my mind for him to play in the game at the weekend, so that was always in my mind. So yeah, I mean, I thought he did very well. He's getting there, and long may that continue.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Crabbers. Dan, you're Radio Lancs. Hi, Dan.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Sean.
Dan.
I'll ask some questions about your team, if I may. I know you talked about the strikers at the weekend and the goal scoring. I guess if you were playing Saturday, and had 5 or 6 days to work on the training ground, you could perhaps do things differently, try and change things, try and work on the finishing. Are you a bit constrained by the fact that you basically get no time on the training ground with the schedule?
Well, it has been different this season. As we all know, the Premier League often runs, unless you're in the European competitions, etc., it often runs with a week's gap in between. So you have got a bigger training schedule. And, of course, you get a bigger window for players to get over knocks and, injuries. The season played out differently. We all understand that. That's one of the challenges. We've got a lot of games coming. So, it's helpful having time on the training ground, but our strikers are not a million miles away from scoring goals. I've said it all along. They both nicked a goal. Two of them, which was Barnsley and Woody. Obviously, Nick won the other week, and there's goals in them because their stats and facts of the past show that. So it will come round their way. So I'm not overthinking the training side of things and how we work on finishing. Sometimes actually it's often the best case to come away from that and just know that they believe in scoring a goal because they've done so many times in the past. So I think there's a balance, but I think the strikers here, they know they're ready to score goals. Nick won the other day, very good finish as well. So they know that there's chances there. That's the key thing. We've got to keep creating chances.
I know you had young Joel Mumbongo involved in the FA Cup, but the 4 senior strikers that we talk about that you've referenced there, do experienced players like that need to be reminded or need to be told, or are they always going to be demanding more of themselves and their own harshest critics?
Well, they certainly know their job, they know their role, of course. So, it's more prompting and reminding of certain things that the team need. But, they're all aware. I mean, they're rounded professionals now. And can continue to learn from the Premier League. So I think that's a given. But the prompts and the pushes and the reminders and, sometimes simple reminders, keep getting between the posts. It sounds really ridiculously simple. But often the top strikers will say, if they're having a quiet spell, they have to keep getting in between the 2 goalposts, from every situation. And the ball will land to you and you will score goals. So sometimes it's simple snippets like that. Going on to, just as an aside, Joel, I thought did great the other day. He's a young player. He's learning as he goes. He's been with the first team squad. I thought he did great coming on. It's good to see him and Gleno and Benno out there, delivering performances. Just as an aside. But yeah, strikers generally, they know their job. Sometimes you just have to remind them of the simplicities that get them in the area to score the goals. The hardest bit is putting it in the net.
And I guess you always consistently over so many years have talked about performances and that's what you concentrate on. Even when you don't score or when you aren't scoring a lot of goals, is the key to be creating chances? Is the key to have creative players elsewhere in the team? These days it might be your full-backs, your midfield players, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I think it's not changed as much as people think. Down the years, everyone's always looked at players who can create from many different positions. It's almost, like fullbacks now are looked at as providers. They've always been providers, varying guises, of course. Systems, etc., etc. But you are looking for production from everywhere. But that's goals as well. You're not just looking for the strikers to score. We're very active and doing very well again from set pieces. That's an important part. We know can score in free play and open play. But the key comes from making the chances, and I think we're doing that better and better over this last run of games. And then taking them, of course, and that's the hardest bit. If it was an easy job, there'd be strikers everywhere and there'd be a free-for-all to put them in your side. Well, there's not, quite obviously. I've always thought it's the hardest position in the game, centre-forward. I still stand by that. So I give them plenty of leeway to allow themselves the chance to miss, if that makes sense. You have the freedom to miss a chance rather than getting so tight about it that the next one has to go in. Put a little bit more pressure on them at the weekend because I thought we created some golden chances. There is a difference, sometimes half chances are maybes, but at the weekend I said, come on lads, these are golden chances. But generally speaking, I leave the strikers alone because I know how hard it is.
And just in terms of the league situation, not everybody playing in this midweek. I think supporters might look at a league table and look at a game in hand and mentally add 3 points onto a points tally. I guess that doesn't take into account playing Manchester United.
Well, I don't know what the relevance of that question is, Beardy, to be honest, but other than to say that I think that we'll just be looking to try and win a game, regardless of what the league table looks like or says, we'll just be looking to try and perform to win a game.
Does it matter, though? Does it matter that you're playing and some of the teams around you aren't, and that if you can get 3 points, it will give you kind of parity in terms of games played and 3 points more?
Whether it matters or not, it's a fact. So we are playing and they're not. So I don't really worry about whether it matters or not. I just know it's another game that we've got to perform in. And if we can win that game, of course, beneficial to us for sure.
I thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Dan. Alex James, thanks alive.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Just a quick follow-up one on the strikers that Dan was sort of talking about there. You spoke and you referenced it then about the pressure you put on them after Saturday. Is that what Matej Vydra has done with coming on and scoring a goal? And that just how sort of close is he perhaps to knocking on the door and challenging for a more regular starting spot?
Yeah, I didn't really put any pressure on him. I just reminded him that the chances were there and they're very good chances. So really reminded him of, I asked questions of the centre-halves, let's say, if a goal goes in and the keeper, so therefore it's fair sometimes to ask questions of the centre-forwards as well. My point is I tend to leave him alone because I think it's the hardest job in the game. So, there has to be a reference to that.
With Matej, though, who's obviously, I think he scored 3 goals in 4 starts this season. I know most of those have come in the cup competitions. How pleased have you been with his maybe development this season, and how close maybe is he to knocking on the door and saying, play me every week, this is what I can offer?
Well, he's just doing his job correctly. He had a bit of an injury, so he's come out of that. He's another one we've had to be careful with, and it was a minor thing that took longer than we thought. We've had a few of them over the last year or so we've had to be a bit careful. He looked sharp when he came on, and we want that from our substitutes as well as the starters. No, his job is what you've said, is to come on, look sharp, be alive, be ready to go.
United coming up, and I hate to bring up penalties, but I think they've had more this season than you've had in 4.5 seasons in the Premier League, and Burnley is a particular anomaly on that front. Can you sort of explain that in any way, shape or form as to just why you've only had, I think, 5 and they've had 30 odd in the same sort of time period?
It's a complete anomaly in modern football. We all know that. Just that's not really an opinion. That's just a fact on stats of football. I don't think our players, they try and just get on with their jobs. The ones that you want are the ones when they haven't gone down easily, but it's still a foul. And I think that's a big debate in football at the moment. I think it's beginning to. I think the person in the street who's a football fan are beginning to question some of that across the pitch. Why these fouls are getting given for nothing, and yet when there is contact, they don't get given unless you fall on the floor. So I think that is a debate at the moment. I think the referees, it looks like to me, it's only an opinion from the games I watch, they're beginning to let the game go a little bit more for what I class as non-fouls. But they've still got to keep their eye on real fouls. And I think there's a number of cases which we sent in to be looked at, and they all agreed, the powers that be agreed, where we didn't get penalties, and they clearly are, and it's because our players didn't go down very easily. So, we've got to be careful with that fine line. I can't cost our players because the modern game suggests you have to go down all the time. I don't want to start our players doing that, but if they are brought down in the box and it's legitimate, then they've got to go down, because seemingly you don't get as many penalties unless you go down. So if they are touching the box, you have to go down. That's what the game wants. That's what the fans want, because that's what's happening.
And just a quick one on January, and I know it's a difficult window. This year, I guess more than ever, particularly for Burnley with the takeover and ALK getting their feet under the table, would you expect any business potentially to be done late on, just because there's that sort of transition period, if you like, for the new ownership?
Yeah, it's not a more than ever situation. We've been in many situations down the years I've been here. Cash has never been free flowing. We've been signing loads and loads of players without at least losing some players or selling players. So no, I mean we continue to talk with the new chairman and you know the people that are involved, and we'll see what's what. But you've got to have the targets first. You know, you can have all the money you want if there isn't the targets there that fit in with what you want to do and the model that you work to, then it's irrelevant. So the targets are the important part, and then the finance comes and whether we can do them.
I don't think I've thrown a random name at you this transfer window, so I'll use my chip now. Quite a bit of speculation.
I'll give you the answer before you even say the name. I have no clue what you're talking about.
Well, you can repeat that now if you like. Robin Quaison's been linked over in Europe, a young Swedish player playing in Germany. Any a name that rings any bells to you?
Well, I think that's one of the many that we've been linked with before, so it seems like just an easy story, that one.
Thanks, Sean. All the best tomorrow.
Thank you, Alex. And just to conclude this section, Eleanor, BA, anything on that?
2 seconds, Eleanor. I'll just have a swig, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just on COVID, obviously there's been a lot of focus on the behaviour of footballers. I mean, how much have you had to sort of be strict with your players, or do you trust them to do the right thing?
Well, I think the thing about behaviour of players, you know, that we're under way stricter guidelines from the Premier League, I think, than normal life is. So it's not that easy. Now, of course, there's been some, you know, unfortunate behaviour which is not the right thing, of course. But some of it, let's face it makes a story. So there's always going to be someone pointing a camera at someone to try and make a story. So I feel for the players a little bit because most, in my experience, I can only talk of our own, of course, being diligent. They're trying to do the right things. They are human beings. The rules outside of these walls are different. So therefore, they are allowed to live by the rules as well, the normal rules of life, the current rules of life. So that is tricky for them. You know, I think my point is there's plenty of people out there who, unfortunately, are not all applying themselves to the rules. So to pick on just a footballer because someone's trying to get a camera to find a footballer who's not doing the right thing, I think that's a little bit tricky on behalf of footballers. But there have been some cases where footballers have been a bit naive, I would say, in some of their actions. Ours so far haven't been. We can only advise. We can only give them good information about what we think is important in-house. Our guidelines are very strict here, obviously, through the Premier League. And we've had to just change again because we've had a few cases. We've had to now separate even further. Even us as staff, our staff meetings have changed. You know, we're in a huge room with distance everywhere. So we're trying to do our bit. That's all we can ask in the camp, and that's all we can ask once they leave, you know, this building and go out into their own private lives, is try and do the right thing, as most people, let's face it, across the country are trying to do the right things.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk about maybe tightening the restrictions sort of generally and more talk about whether professional sport might be suspended again. I mean, are your sort of feelings still the same on that, you know, if it can continue, then let's keep going?
I think I don't know what else that they can do, because I mean we're going back. We're here back to the original lockdown, which was very strict. So we're at that level now. I mean, you know, when you're talking about travelling to games on 3 and 4 coaches and things like that, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the exact science, of course, every detail of COVID, but like you and probably everyone else, I've got a fair understanding. I think the Premier League are doing everything possible, and mostly the players are as well. Like I say, we can't govern what they do in their private lives, but inside the building we can. I think as long as the protocols are there and it's as safe as it possibly can be, then I think football has to continue. I think it would be a drastic action to stop it now with so many protective sort of ways that we're operating. But anyway, look, I can't make them decisions. It certainly won't be my decision if that has to happen or it's agreed that it happens. At this stage, I don't think it would be beneficial to anyone. But I'm not the one who makes them big decisions. That's way above my pay grade, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you.